It's Matt. It's Helen, the Clueless Fangirl. We're here to do a little Dork Lord of the Rings segment. And we've actually, because of some recent news from Amazon, we're gonna throw in some chatting about a new image that just dropped. But first, Helen, please introduce yourself to our Dork Lord fans.
Hello, lovely people. My name is Helen from the Clueless Fangirl channel. Not that clueless about some topics regarding Lord of the Rings.
Very much so.
And yeah, just like Matt, Matt was already on my channel. If anybody wants to check that out, it was a very fun discussion we had about Numenor and drowning and, a Temple of Doom and whatnot. And yeah, I dared to write to Matt because I love his channel. And I found him, and and I think I even invited you to this Tolkien community thingy.
You did.
And and then you were on other
thanks.
friends. No, oh my God, I really love your content, and I think we're very similar in what we do, like these dialogues with other content creators, or just speaking to a camera about nerdy, dorky things.
And a little more deep dive. I think that's the thing too. Is it's not like a 5-minute type video. We're like, no. Mm-hmm. We're in it for the next hour kind of thing. Yeah.
Prepare yourself. Take a longer break, people. Exactly. No. And so I am very happy to be on your channel. And, I learned you have a dork army because they were commenting on my videos. The fans. Exactly. So
awesome. Yeah. And you just did a video recently on the Teleri elves, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah.
A lot of elves, Teleri, Vanyar, Noldor. I covered all the elves with Lexi, another fellow girl next Gunda. She's so cool and
it's a great name, by the way.
Too. Oh my God, it's one of the best names in the fandom, and yeah, I love her. Yeah.
Our plan before Amazon threw in a curveball was we were going to discuss our basically top 5. Each of us do our top 5 favorite obscure characters from Tolkien's mythology. And so we're going to do that. But first, just because this is on everybody's lips, and I've actually gotten several requests, hey, what is your take on this picture? We'll talk up front about this image that dropped. So Amazon announced that the Lord of the Rings on Prime series is going to drop on September 2nd of 2022. I felt like they missed the boat there a little bit on like if they'd have dropped it on 9/22, then you get like the birth date for the 2 of the ring bearers, Frodo and Bilbo. Some people pointed out that Tolkien died on 9/2, which seems a little morbid if that's what they're going with. But anyway, 9/2.
I think that's actually a coincidence. I don't.
Right. Come on. Like, he died that day. So anyway, we're dropping a video.
It's more about bookings. I worked for TV for 2 years as a producer, and it's more about literally advertising bookings, what kind of holidays are in what countries there, what's your main market. I think there's another idea.
A day of the week, probably. And
yes, exactly. So that's that. I actually thought they would take the old Game of Thrones spot in April, or maybe I hoped they
right. Like September. Oh man, it feels so long away, but it'll get here eventually. But and most importantly, is they dropped an image along with this announcement, and that's what everyone's talking about. Because I mean, there's no question. I don't think anyone doubts that this is from earlier than the Second Age. Right? I don't think anybody's like, no, I think it could be Moria. I don't know, like what? No, this is the 2 trees. It's Laurelin and Telperion, which places this image appropriately named Years of the Trees.
It does. Even before the First Age, because a lot of people were saying, welcome to the First Age. I was like, the First Age began with the rising of the sun.
Keep going back. And the city that we're seeing is almost certainly Tyrion. Yeah. You can tell from its proximity to the trees and the nearby mountains, which would be the Pelori Mountains. And the city's architecture, so it includes that tower, the Minden Eldelieva. You see that tower hanging out there in Tyrion. So that feels pretty reasonable to say this is Tyrion during the Years of the Trees. And it's incredible news because I didn't know that Amazon had any rights to any pre-Second Age material. And so even if it's limited in scope, we don't know the scope, but even if it's limited, that's exciting that they can draw storylines from that time. I mean, did you know that they could draw from pre-Second Age? Or?
No, I didn't. No, I didn't. But the thing is, they were always very ominous about the rights they have. They were very tight-lipped. Tolkien Estate obviously never talked about anything. So yeah, we didn't know. But I mean, my little tiny nerd heart got so excited because this is what I talk on my channel. I do talk about these kind of events and the first and second age, but also the ages before the sun arose. So I was excited because this opens up to see something like a prologue, like we did, in the OG movies, like Peter Jackson introduced us to, and then to us unknown world, right? And I do think this even makes the world bigger and wider if you go back in time. And if that person, I think it's Galadriel, spoiler, but we'll talk about that in a minute, I guess. That. Yeah, but it's beautiful if you have this kind of framing again of her telling you where she is from. I imagine this as her saying something along the lines like, this is the story of my people. This is my homeland. This is, it was a beautiful land full of splendor. There was no death. There was nothing. And I really do think then she tells us, just like, with the ring, with the War of the Last Alliance, but then Morgoth came and this happened and we fled our lands. You don't know how truthful she will be because, she also...
That's true. Like, I mean, some regrets there, perhaps.
Yeah.
Gloss over.
Yeah. And I don't think, I do not know. Do you know, have you heard, and I think this was confirmed by Amazon. I'm not sure this came from Fellowship of Fans and I think the OneRing.net. And they said that it will be two pilots. And apparently the pilots will surround and introduce us to this world.
J.A. Bayona was brought in, and those were the two episodes that he focused on in particular. And so the implication was it was kind of its own self-contained vehicle, like these two episodes. So you think maybe those whole two episodes are going to be prehistory?
No, I don't.
Yeah, that sounds too much to ask for, frankly.
Yes, and it would be too much material. They need, and I think we have a lot of information, about the flight of the Noldor. We have detailed information about all that, of all the speeches of what happened. So I don't think they have as much freedom as they have with the other source material, like the Forging of the Rings and those things. And I think they will focus on that. But it's a good introduction. Like I said, it's beautiful to have a narration that brings you back to this world because literally it's been a while. It's been 20 years, So
and that does seem likely. I mean, the prologue idea is definitely, it seems the most likely plan. There are other options for it. I mean, one, if you've got Galadriel, for instance, and we'll talk, I have another theory perhaps, but if it's Galadriel, I could imagine a scenario where she's looking out and envisioning the old world, and maybe it transitions to what she's now seeing in Middle Earth or something, for whatever. But it's hard to know what we're seeing, but boy, this is certainly a flashback. There's no way to interpret this badly. This is great news. Generally. It is really. Yes. I mean, it's great. It's awesome. The big question is, who is this person, right?
Exactly.
And as you say, you obviously are in the Galadriel camp. I think I am too. I'm a little. We'll talk about it, but but we see this lone figure in the foreground looking out at the trees. I mean, one answer could be random person staring, anonymous person, but that's not it, right?
No,
because why would you put that person in your one marketing picture? Oh, this person makes no difference.
Exactly, yes. Yeah. And they confirmed, I don't know if you have heard that as well, they confirmed this is from a scene. So it's not just
great, it's not just marketing. I did not hear that.
It is from a scene in the movie. So
perfect.
Yeah.
So the idea is this is almost certainly someone from the series, hence someone who witnessed the trees and survived into the Second Age.
Yes.
That's a small group of folks. There are not many people that could be.
No.
When I zoomed in on this image, I noticed that what appear to be other figures look like they're dressed in white, and they're walking along the pathways around the city. Mm-hmm. So I think that means that the residents of Tyrion, the elves, routinely wear white robes. which to me means this character is likely an elven resident of Tyrion, hence not like a member of the Valar or a Maiar spirit. This is an elf, Tyrion-based, hanging out near Tyrion.
And it's interesting if you say Tyrion, just for people for reference. So Tyrion was once inhabited by the firstborn of the firstborn. So these were the Vanyar elves. So the Vanyar lived in Tyrion before, but then they choose to be closer to the gods in a way. And so the Vanyar moved to another city. They had another main city, and who took over? The Noldor, Galadriel's people. I mean, she's counted amongst, she has other blood in her as well. Her grandmother was Vanyar. This is a full-blooded Vanyar. And so the queen basically during that time, the second queen. And the Noldor moved in the city. So Finwë took over Tyrion, which is interesting. So it were mainly Noldor living at
right.
that time.
And we do get, there's some evidence in this photo that sets it in a time frame that almost certainly sets it in after the Vanyar left. The clue is that the figure is wearing a sword.
Yes.
That definitely places this in a very narrow window of time.
Yeah.
Because
they geared up.
It's after the elves forged weapons and before the trees were destroyed. So it's like it's very specific. And in fact, I've got the quote. So the elves for a very long time they didn't have swords. They didn't forge weapons. But during the years of the trees, we get this bit where Melkor starts spreading dissension. When Melkor saw that these lies were smoldering and that pride and anger were awake among the Noldor, he spoke to them concerning weapons. And in that time, the Noldor began the smithing of swords and axes and spears. And Feanor made a secret forge, of which not even Melkor was aware. And there he tempered fell swords for himself and for his sons. So, before that happened, no forged weapons. Now you've got an elf just hanging out on a hillside wearing a sword. That's post-Vanyar. This is a Noldor elf, resident of Tyrion. And the trees are still alive. Melkor and Ungoliant haven't taken them out. My first thought was this is probably Galadriel, as you mentioned, and that's honestly the best guess. I would say the one aspect that I'm like, is the hair. Right.
Yes.
For one thing, it doesn't seem like quite the right color. Now maybe it's a filter issue, right? But it's like it's blonde. It's like a strawberry blonde, not like that silver gold blonde that we're kind of used to hearing about Galadriel. And also, it does seem short.
Yeah, I think it's a bun. I really, I'm a girl.
It does look like it's up a bit.
I think it's woven. So if you weave and this is what it said when she's doing activities.
Yes, it's one of Tolkien's letters.
Yes, exactly.
He says, a maiden crowned with gleaming hair. It is a secondary name given to her in her youth in the far past because she had long hair which glistened like gold, but was also shot with silver. She was then of Amazon disposition and bound up her hair as a crown when taking part in athletic feats.
Yes.
So, yes, we have evidence that she did bind up her hair. There's also talk, apparently, I think the OneRing.net put out a rumor that supposedly the elves are going to have short hair in this series now, but I can't imagine that would apply to Galadriel. It's canonically she has long hair.
The thing is literally about her hair, that age, and him, asking for her hair, and then later
and the light of the trees. In fact,
I mean, it would be weird if she has short hair. No, it looks like if you do exactly that, if you braid your hair and then put it up, it looks like that. But
I agree. I agree that is certainly an option for what we're seeing. And that would make sense. I'll throw this out there. I mean,
I'm excited now. What's coming?
Okay. So, assuming the filter isn't completely off, this person has blonde hair of some type. Yes. It's strawberry or whatever. It's blonde. Yeah. And that certainly eliminates a bunch of elves because, contrary to Peter Jackson, there are very few Noldor elves that have blonde hair.
Noldor is me.
Right. So like Celebrimbor, for instance, that would be another potential elf who witnessed the trees and is in the Second Age. And it could be, but he almost certainly does not have fair hair. He's probably dark hair. Yes. Galadriel's got the blonde hair, obviously, a little Vanyar influence. But there is one other blonde elf potentially in Middle Earth during the Second Age, who also witnessed the light of the trees. And a couple of years ago, I actually theorized he'd be in the show based on an audition script that I thought suggested his potential arrival, and that would be Glorfendell.
It's my best guess as well. Like I know I think it's Galadriel. I want it to be Glorfendell.
Right, because then we'd get almost certainly, if we're seeing this back to the use of the trees, you would get Glorfindel versus a Balrog during the fall of Gondolin as his backstory, and that would be like, mwah! Oh, that would be awesome.
And the thing is, I really do think they will put Glorfindel because, Jackson, in a way, cheated him out of his role in the movies. And a lot of people were upset, but he is such an important character. And like you said, he is from Aman. He has that light of the two trees within him. This is why he is so powerful. This is why he can fight the Nazgul, and the wrath he can kind of, like the explosion of the wrath within him, the power, how he fights is because he has seen exactly the light of the trees. And my theory is, so Glorfindel, I mean, it's not confirmed. Tolkien doesn't say that. I'm pretty sure it is. So Glorfindel crossed with Galadriel the Helcaraxe. We know from canon, from the Fall of Gondolin, that he is kin to Turgon. Turgon is the son of Fingolfin, so he is a Noldor, and he's kin. How is he kin? Finwë had 4 children within this. So there was Fingolfin, Finarfin, Irime, and Findes. And one of the girls crossed Helcaraxe with the others, with Galadriel, with all the others, with Fingolfin. So Fingolfin's sister, and I think it was Irime, yes. And I do think, why her? Why Glorfindel? How is Glorfindel kin to Turgon? He's his cousin. I really do think he is the son of that elf, of that daughter that crossed the Helcaraxe. So that it would make sense. Tolkien never says it is, but it would make sense.
It would make sense. I agree. That seems a pretty logical conclusion.
He crossed
to reach.
with his mother, yeah. And then, later on, he lived in Gondolin, very high up. He had his own house. Why would the king allow him that? Why would Turgon allow? He's his cousin. And then even later on, he's related to Elrond. He lives in Rivendell, right? He's related to him through the line going down, Earendil, blah, 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 blah. He's related. Elrond is a descendant of that line. So it's actually cool. So it would make sense they show him. He gets time, he's so important. He cursed the Witch King, because what will we see? We will see the Witch King and all the other the nine being turned by Sauron, right?
If one rumor is to be believed, I think it cuts against Glorfindel a little bit in that one of the many rumors that I think the OneRing.net put out about elves with short hair, for instance, was that apparently Sauron / Anatar doesn't show up in the first season. I still find that hard to believe, but
no.
If that was true, it would mean that we wouldn't see Glorfindel either, because Glorfindel's arrival in Middle-earth, it kind of corresponds with the forging of the ring. Yes. Anyway, I still find it hard to believe that we're not going to meet the villain of the piece in the whole first season.
Yeah.
But anyway.
No, I'm exactly like you. So I want it to be Glorfindel. I do think, though, just movie cinematic wise, and to give people something they can relate to, right? Because this is how you introduce a new world, a new universe with somebody they can relate to. And I think the cinematic approach would be Galadriel.
Yeah. So safe bet, Galadriel. Long shot, Glorfindel.
Yes.
There we go. All right.
People have said it's Sauron. People have said it's Sauron even.
I don't see it, mainly because the text that we do have about that time says that he's in Angband at the time.
He's in Angband,
And you can make up a backstory that gets him there, but you have to work at it. I don't see it. That said, we'll now go on to the original purpose of this video, which was to do our top 5 favorite obscure characters.
Very excited for this.
So I think we'll just go back and forth on this. Do you want to? We had a couple of honorable mentions. Maybe we'll throw out the honorable mentions. How about this? We'll save the honorable mentions for before we do our number 1 picks. How about that?
Yeah. Oh, you have it. Oh,
it doesn't matter. If you didn't have it, that's fine. I actually did kind of organize it, but you don't have to do that.
Okay, let me organize it in my head then.
Okay, organize it in your head.
Yes.
You take a second.
Yeah, you
I'll tell you,
start
I'll go
then.
first. How about that?
Yeah.
Okay. So my number 5 favorite intriguing obscure character is Matan. In fact, he has a lot. What we just talked about plays in with Matan.
Yeah.
He's got red hair and a beard, which is pretty unusual for an elf.
Yeah.
And he's one of the most skilled followers of Aule, the smith. Well, his daughter, Nerdanel, marries the infamous Feanor. So he becomes father-in-law to the most beloved and despised elf in Tolkien's mythology. It's like no fault of his own. He's just like, oh, my daughter really likes you. Great. So he's trying to bond with his new son-in-law.
Yeah.
He sees that Feanor is also very interested in crafting. So he teaches him metalworking.
Yeah.
And we get this little quote. This is about Feanor. While still in his early youth, he wedded Nerdanel, the daughter of a great smith named Matan, among those of the Noldor most dear to Aule. And of Matan, he learned much of the making of things in metal and stone. Great. So awesome. Got something in common. No need for awkward holiday get-togethers with the in-laws. And, you flash forward a few years and Melkor starts spreading those lies we talked about. Feanor starts secretly forging weapons.
Yeah.
And so we get this quote: bitterly did Matan rue the day when he taught to the husband of Nerdanel all the lore of metalwork that he had learned of Aule. So Matan mentors Feanor, making him more skilled and more lethal, and leading eventually to the first kinslaying, which is like, I feel for Matan. He has to carry that regret with him.
Yeah.
No fault of his own. He's just a very skilled craftsman and a notable elf that just barely gets a mention, but it has a big place in history. There you go.
Yeah.
There's my number 5, Matan.
Woohoo! I like it. So my number 5 is, for everybody who doesn't know, I was actually born in Transylvania. Not joking. True
Awesome.
fact. I played, in Dracula's dungeon. My mum was an art student, and they lived there during that time. And so I played as a teeny tiny kid in the dungeons in the castle.
And what is that castle's name? What's the name of the?
Bran.
Wow.
Yeah. So obviously, I'm very interested in all the vampire. I love Bram Stoker, although he's never really been there. But I love all these mythology behind vampirism, and the OG Count Dracula, because he was Vlad Tepes. He really existed, and so it's a cool story. So obviously people
with that background, of course.
That background, my pick maybe should be number 1, but it's Turringwetil, the vampire in Tolkien's universe. And I mean, we really do not know. We literally have one phrase.
And that's that's the thing about these obscure characters, right?
Yes.
You get a mention and then you have to fill in the gaps. But yes.
Yeah, but it's interesting because Tolkien, even with these characters, you find more back information in his letters, because obviously people are like us intrigued.
Right. What a vampire? What? Yeah,
exactly. How's a vampire in there? And then he explains often in his letters, he gives backstories or why he included these obscure characters, which is really interesting. So there's a bit more information about her. But I do think and it's not said, but she was a shapeshifter, obviously. And it's cool how she's described, like she had iron claws and fingered wings. So it's really, I imagine her as looking, with face of a beautiful woman, probably, and then that still the shape of a vampire. This is how she often is portrayed as well in a lot of fan art. She brought and took information from Sauron. She mainly worked from Sauron. This is what we know. She was mainly based in Tolingauroth. And I do think, because of the shape-shifting thingy, that she is a Maiar. Maybe a lesser Maiar, but I don't think she is, because we have different things in Tolkien's world. We just don't have the angels, demigods, whatever. We also have nature spirits and stuff like that. I think maybe one of our mentions is one of those. And I don't think she's a nature spirit. I think she is a Maiar coming, also from the music, part of the music, and was turned just like Sauron, and then maybe Sauron turned her, and she worked for him. So I think she's a Maiar, and obviously she lived in the First Age, and she has her part in the Beren and Luthien story, and I imagine either Huan or I don't think Luthien herself, because how Luthien fights is not, she's not stabbing
sure, yeah.
people. But I think so Huan, during the fight with Sauron, I think she died there, maybe protecting her master.
Okay.
That's how I would imagine, because Tolkien doesn't say.
Yeah, the gruesome part there is did they take her skin, or did she have a cloak, or
no? I think they took her skin. I think, yeah,
like made a skin cloak. Like,
exactly,
okay.
yeah. And Luthien and Beren, then escaped as Draugluir and Turringwetil, using their, whatever,
right, the disguise,
skin in disguise, and this is how they reached Angband, unchallenged, basically. And it's cool. I wish we knew more about her, but I like that Tolkien includes even this vampire myth.
Right. It opens this window to an entire
new genre
section of the mythology that he doesn't address, but you're like, oh, it's out there. Like, there it is. If we knew more. Yeah.
Because it's a complete different genre, this very superstitious, whatever, this kind of mythology is nothing like Norse mythology. It's very, very different. And it's not as old, I would say, as the Norse mythology or Greek mythology he really liked and, played with. So it's cool that he even introduced these things. Yeah.
Agreed. No, that's an awesome entry for our favorite obscure characters.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so my number 4 is Aryan. So Aryan, you just talked about that you think Turringwetil is a Maiar spirit.
Yeah.
I would say Aryan is arguably the most powerful Maiar spirit. Obviously, people can judge, but
she's up there.
So we get the quote, the maiden whom the Valar chose from among the Maiar to guide the vessel of the sun was named Aryan. In the days of the trees, Aryan had tended the golden flowers in the gardens of Vanna and watered them with the bright dews of Lorelin. Aryan was chosen because she had not feared the heats of Lorelin and was unhurt by them, being from the beginning a spirit of fire, whom Melkor had not deceived nor drawn to his service. Too bright were the eyes of Aryan for even the Eldar to look on, and leaving Valinor, she forsook the form and raiment which, like the Valar, she had worn there, and she was as a naked flame, terrible in the fullness of her splendor. And we get the quote later where it says, because Morgoth is terrified of her. And Aryan, Morgoth feared with a great fear, but dared not come nigh her, having indeed no longer the power. With shadows he hid himself and his servants from Aryan, the glance of whose eyes they could not long endure, and the lands near his dwelling were shrouded in fumes and great clouds. So, apparently Melkor tried to recruit her, like the Balrogs, Maiar spirits of flame. She refused him, and I think Middle-earth is lucky that she did, because if she had joined, let's say if she and Sauron are like in league with Morgoth, like, woo!
Yeah.
She's very, very powerful, fire spirit. And so, she doesn't get a big mention, but she has a big part to play. And so she's guiding the vessel of the sun across the sky.
And there's a beautiful story of the moon chasing, what's his name? He was
Tyrion?
Tyrion, yes, exactly. So there's this beautiful story that he is in love with her and he's chasing her, but they can never actually be together because they always have to. So it's kind of beautiful.
Yep. So there you go, Aryan, number 4.
Yay, good pick. Like it. So my second pick, and no, I'm not just choosing spirits and women, but my number 2 or 4 is Goldberry.
Nice.
So, Goldberry, who was she? Again, we don't know that much. She's a third age. Obviously, I do think she's way older.
Yeah, probably much older.
Yeah, we know Tom Bombadil is literally old as F, and and she must be as well. But she's introduced to us in the Lord of the Rings, in the Fellowship. And not sadly, not sadly. I think it would be odd to have her and him in the movies. It would be like, what is this?
Right. You see them and then they're gone for the rest of the movies. And you go,
Yeah.
wait, what happened? Yeah.
Yeah, but her name actually means, I think, river daughter, something like that. And yeah, and it reminds you also of the Lady of the Lake, these kind of mythologies. I do think she's something like a nymph. And I don't think she's a Maiar. I don't think that. I also
Okay.
don't think Tom Bombadil is.
Yeah, I don't know. I agree.
I don't think that. They are embodiments, and this is again what Tolkien didn't have time to check up the book with the letters, but I do think there's a letter of Tolkien where he talks about especially Tom Bombadil, and he says, and I think he also mentions Goldberry, and it's like they are embodiments of the nature. I do think Tom Bombadil is a side effect of the music of the Ainur. I think he is something that was also created, and he's just there, to look out for nature and have a lovely, cheerful, good time, and not care about the fate of the world.
And wear boots.
And wear boots. And yeah, well, she's his wife. And it's funny how they met, because actually, I mean, she's not evil or anything, but these nymphs, they often are very playful. And she tried to drown him with his bit, like he was, having a jolly good time somewhere near the river or the lake where she was. And she grabbed him by the beard, and well, she didn't want to drown him, but he was underwater for a while, and then he told her, because he kind of has power apparently over these nature spirits. You see it in Old Tree Willow then later. And he told her off and said, no, let me go. But then it is said the next day he came back with flowers and asked for her hand in marriage, which is so cool. We don't know when that happened, but she was very nice, and she took care of the hobbits when they came, and when they were with Tom Bombadil. And yeah, she's just it's cool that he gives the character of Tom Bombadil, who could be a complete loner, like Ulmo, like somebody like Ulmo,
Great point.
like
or the old man Willow, for instance.
Or the old man, yes, they're all alone. They don't have a certain other. But it's interesting that he gives Tom Bombadil, a wife, which is kind of beautiful. So he's not alone. And I also do think they, in a way, personify water and land. I think he takes care, of the land, and he stands for the land, and she stands for water, also a very important element. And yeah, so I don't think she's a Maiar, because people speculate about that. I think she's something like a nature child, a product of nature, like today in our mythology, like a nymph. I would say she's.
And it's great too that we get this sense of we meet Tom and we meet Goldberry, and you get the sense that they have a wide array of abilities and powers that we're just not privy to, because all they're doing is, caring for the hobbits in that moment. But if we were to stay with them longer, we would see that, in fact, these are incredibly powerful spirits.
They are, yes. But they don't care about that,
Right.
They're not like Sauron, who want and need this power for dominion over others. They just want to have a good time with this kind of power they have, and the nature. So yeah, it's beautiful. And one last note on that, because, I'm doing this Greek mythology thing. I love Greek mythology, and I was rereading the Iliad and other stories, and very often in Greek mythology, the nature and the earth is female, actually. So Gaia, she was female, right, in Greek mythology. And here, and often, somebody like Poseidon, he's male. For the water is male, and the earth, and they switched, and Tolkien switched it, like he kind of often does, with a Beren and Luthien story, like the princess saves the prince from the tower, not the other way around. So I really I don't know, did he think that far? But normally nature is personified as female and water as male. So it's interesting that he turned it around. Yeah.
Goldberry, worthy entry in number 4. All right, to my number 3.
Ooh.
And my number 3, actually, we don't even technically know his name, but he is known as Otar. There's a
I really had to look it up because I didn't know, Matt.
Okay. Oh, no, yeah, right, because it's not an actual name. So Otar is one of only 3 soldiers that survived the disaster of the Gladden Fields.
Yeah.
So, I mean, he was present for that event, which is one of the most momentous events in Tolkien's history.
Yeah.
You know, Isildur killed, most of his sons killed, the ring lost, terrible things happened, and everybody died except 3 folks. One of them is Otar. Mm-hmm. Not only that, he personally saves the shards of Narsil. Yeah. I mean, if he doesn't succeed in his mission that he's given to specifically by Isildur, there's no Anduril. There's no Aragorn later, many years later, doesn't wield Anduril, reforge the shards of Narsil. Mm-hmm. So we get this quote. Here it is. Isildur and his band are being attacked by orcs. The orcs were now drawing near. Isildur turned to his esquire. Otar, he said, I give this now into your keeping. And he delivered to him the great sheath and the shards of Narsil, Elendil's sword. Save it from capture by all means that you can find, and at all costs, even at the cost of being held a coward who deserted me. Take your companion with you and flee. Go, I command you. Then Otar knelt, kissed his hand, and the 2 young men fled down into the dark valley. Mm-hmm. And they obviously succeed. Somehow they get through this surrounding group of orcs and make it to Rivendell, and hence Shards of Narsil are available many, many years later. There's an author's note that goes with this. It says, Otar is the only name used in the legends, but it is probably only the title of address that Isildur used at this tragic moment, hiding his feelings under formality. Otar, warrior, soldier, was the title of all who, though fully trained and experienced, have not yet been admitted to the rank of knight. And then here's the great part. But Otar was dear to Isildur and of his own kin. So that suggests Otar is related to the royal family. Yeah. Hence, he's like his esquire, you know. Yeah. So he calls him Otar, hands him the shards of Narsil, says, look, you might be branded a coward for this, but I'm ordering you to save these incredibly important shards. Get out of here. Mm-hmm. And so again, he only appears for brief moments, but he's involved in one of the most important events in history and saves the day. Future events depend on Otar somehow getting to Rivendell with the shards.
Yeah. So. And it's cool because I like these times when Tolkien saves these important objects, like he did with the Ring of Barahir, right? That bloody ring literally made it from, what was it, Nirnad? Yes. So from one battlefield to another, survived the bloody downfall of Numenor, survived everything, that shipwrecking, he survived.
Hung out in the north in the wastes for several years.
My God. And then it made it finally to Aragon, you know, and it was of such importance for Beren, you know, to get Finrod to help him, and it's so cool how these objects also are of importance and have a role to play. Yeah,
right, and they really a legit role. They're almost like entities unto themselves.
Yes, they are. Look at the Silmarils. I do think I want to make a video about that one day when I have time. I do think they have a life of their own, but as the ring. But that's another.
There's a reference to them being sentient. So
yes, exactly. Yes, good. Okay, so my number 3 is I might butcher this name, although you know I'm kind of okay with pronunciation because I can roll the R.
You do. You have the R roll.
Yeah, well, that's me being German. So it's Ganburygan. I really like, and this is why I introduced him, because very often, you know, you think, well, in Tolkien's world, it's just the elves. Those are the goodies, right? The blue-eyed, whatever elves. And no, it's not. And especially the Dunlendings, you know, justice for Dunlendings, because they lived in Kalenardon before the Rohirrim came, and then they were kind of chased off their land and stuff. So it's not always black and white, right?
Right, good point.
Yeah, and I like that. So Ganburygan is a Puckleman, basically, and he's the then in the Third Age chieftain of the Puckleman, of the Druidine. You would think, just look at them, you would think they are portrayed as very short men. They're very broad. They have broad faces. They don't look very nice. They look more dwarvish, right? But And you could, just by looking at them, you could imagine, oh, they belong to the baddies. They work for Sauron. No, they
Gotcha.
didn't. And that is so cool because he helped Theoden. And he also played a very important role. I like that all these small characters, these small deeds of little people basically helped in the end to defeat evil. And that was also one of them. And he helped Theoden to escape from the orcs and to get to Minas Tirith.
Right. Huge and important. If not for them, Theoden never arrives in time.
Exactly. Yeah, they would not. He showed him like a secret passage through the mountain, and it's so cool. And this is why later Aragorn even gives them back, basically in a ceremonial way. He says, okay, this is the forest of the Druidine is now your country. Nobody's even allowed to enter it without your permission, which is a grand gesture,
Definitely.
And so he is admitting that they played their role in this war, and I really like that. And again, we don't know too much about him, but I like they are included and they are not the baddies, although looking like typical.
And there's a sense too, maybe similar to you're talking about Goldberry and
Yes.
Tom Bombadil. They're not spirits, but the Druidine are like an ancient
Form of
almost
men.
a wild men, right? They're
Yeah.
these people of nature, off the grid,
Yeah.
and they aid our heroes in some
Yes.
way. That their
Yeah.
nature is providing
Yeah.
assistance.
Yeah, and a super short side note on them, which I didn't know and just found out by research, because I did a lot of Numenor videos in the last time. They even some of them even lived in Numenor, which is insane.
Yeah, I think they also hung out with the people of Halleth, like Lady Halleth.
They did,
And there,
yes.
so they were like,
Which is really cool. Halleth, one of the most underdeveloped female warriors, but yes,
she could be she's on our honorable mention. I didn't put her there, but she should be. So there you go.
She should be, exactly. Yes, exactly. But it's like, if you think about it, so they must have come with ships to Numenor to settle somewhere there. For what reason? For what? I don't know, but it's interesting.
Right,
Maybe
right.
we'll know more in the upcoming book.
That's true. Nature of Middle Earth coming out.
Yes.
They did a little preview.
Yeah, I posted it.
So my number 2, intriguing, obscure character, Fram. All right. So Fram
Good.
is chieftain of the Eotheod. There's, again, very just like all the people we're talking about, very little written about this guy. But what's written is very intriguing. His dad is named Frumgar. So Frumgar is the chief. His son becomes Chief Fram. All right. Anyway, here's the quote. Frumgar, they say, was the name of the chieftain who led his people to Eotheod. Of his son, Fram, they tell that he slew Scatha, the great dragon of arid Mithrin, and the land had peace for the long worms afterwards. Thus, Fram won great wealth, but was at feud with the dwarves who claimed the hoard of Scatha. Fram would not yield them a penny, and sent to them instead the teeth of Scatha made into a necklace, saying, "Jewels such as these you will not match in your treasuries, for they are hard to come by." Some say that the dwarves slew Fram for this insult. There was no great love between Eotheod and the dwarves. And also we get this, one of Tolkien's maps shows the town of Framsburg.
Yeah.
It's up in the northern region.
Yeah.
Near the arid Mithrin, so near the place where Scatha was. So so we get the idea that this stronghold of the Eotheod, the future Rohirrim, basically, I think they named this town after him because he slew a dragon, and it was a hero, but also I think the resulting cash aided the town's creation.
Yes.
And so that dragon hoard, which apparently cost Fram his life, probably sustained the Eotheod through the middle of the Third Age.
Yeah.
We may not have the Rohirrim if Fram doesn't suffer from dragon sickness, essentially, right? He's like, hey, this hoard, which is probably mostly dwarvish, he's like, no, I killed the dragon, I keep it. And so anyway, so it's a big deal, and we don't hear much about him, but wow, he's huge impact. Framsburg.
And there's a very similar character in the Germanic mythology. Do you know a bit about the ring mythology, about the ring
Oh,
of the
sure.
Nibelung? Yes,
Little
there's a
Wagner and yeah.
exactly. So there's a very similar character in the Wagner opera, although the Wagner opera is not 100%, what the ring of the Nibelung. This is like this is our Germanic Edda. Basically, this is our Germanic folk tale of the medieval ages. It's so beautiful. Like families are slaughtering each other, and it's so good. I
And you got
one day I'll
Fafnir, I assume, is your reference, yeah?
Fafnir would be the reference, exactly. So it's really, yes, Norse mythology goes a bit hand in hand with Germanic mythology. It's very similar, but yes, it's so that would be the dwarf Alberich. He is called in German Alberic. Yeah, it's very similar. I love that story of Fram. Yeah, it's cool.
I guess in some ways a tragic hero, right? I mean,
Yes,
you
yes.
know,
My pick number two is, and I was cheating a little bit, but I was talking about objects, right? So
sure.
it's not a person per se,
Totally works. We're
but
fine.
some of these objects have life on their own, I think. So it's Grunt. So we have two Grunts, right? And I know
Yeah.
you did a video. You did a video. I love that
A while
video.
back, yeah.
Oh my god, that's one of your. I really love that.
Oh, wow. Okay, awesome.
Yeah, it's cool. And so the first Grunt was the Warhammer of the Underworld. I mean, that name alone is epic. And that is actually one of my favorite scenes when Fingolfin challenges
Ah,
Morgoth to one-on-one combat. Morgoth doesn't want to do it because he's actually a coward, but he's like, okay, my whole people are watching this, so I better come out when the elf is challenging me. So Grond, so he was Morgoth's Warhammer, basically, and what in the end kind of killed the High King of the Noldor, Fingolfin, one of my favorite characters. And you must notice Fingolfin managed to hurt and to cut Morgoth 7 times. So he
big
always
deal.
carried these wounds. This is just a random elf. Yes, a very powerful elf from a very powerful line, still an elf.
I don't think it's a hyperbole to say that fight, that one-on-one duel, is the
Yeah,
pinnacle one-on-one fight in Tolkien's mythology.
me
That's
too.
it's a set
Yeah.
for that, and Gron is a huge part of that, obviously. So
Exactly. Yeah. So and then there's a they played tribute to the epic Warhammer. So Sauron played tribute, and then we have the battering ram. Yeah, exactly. With the wolf's head, which is so epic and so also really cool. And I think it is in the image of Karkaroth, if I remember
I think
correctly.
that's
Yeah.
true.
Yes.
He's got the fire coming out of his mouth too, a la I swallowed the
The
Silmaril, and now yeah.
Silmarils, exactly. So that is the hound, the whatever werewolf, that swallowed one of the Silmarils, and then Beren and Thingol chased. Anyway, so it's really cool. Again, we don't know, but he was, he ramped down the doors of Minas Tirith, and I just like this that they played that. Obviously, Sauron used this name, and Sauron knew, what happened with Kacharoth, and so it's really cool that they have this
Yeah, that they actually paid homage to
homage.
history in this weapon, and there is a sense that it, like you mentioned, is sentient. Perhaps that there is
I
a
do think
life
so.
force, maybe even in it. It radiates evil to the point that it drives people crazy. It
Yeah.
talks about like the trolls, I think, that
The
are
trolls.
carrying it, like go
Yeah.
mad and just start running around the battlefield.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
there's
It's
something
like
about it.
evil and malice, is spreading through the thingy. And I also think like the Warhammer, like, the swords, like Gurthang. Gurthang was also alive, the black sword of
Right, talked.
Eol, the dark elf. It talked. So I do think some of these objects had a life of their own. So yeah, my
Love it.
number 2 pick.
Very good, very good. All right, so my number one is I did a video on this
Ooh.
years ago, but it brought me in so much that I just can't ignore it. And it is an obscure character. It's Baldor the Hapless. And I love this. The way it's introduced is what makes it awesome. It's
Yeah.
Tolkien at his best.
Yes.
So Baldor is the eldest son of King Brago of Rohan. So he is next in line to be king. He would have been if he'd have survived. And spoilers, he didn't. But so He's in line for the throne at the time that Medceld, the hall that we see Theoden in, is being built. It's back like the year 2500 or so of the Third Age. We're first introduced to him without knowing it's him, and that's what's cool about it. So it's Aragorn and the Grey Company are going through the paths of the dead. So they're in those halls, lightless halls, and they come upon a body that they essentially step over because they don't have time to. They got stuff to do, but there's a body in the hallway, and they kind of just walk past him. The quote is, this is Aragorn looking and seeing this. Before him were the bones of a mighty man. He had been clad in mail, and still his harness lay there whole. For the cavern's air was as dry as dust, and his hauberk was gilded. His belt was of gold and garnets, and rich with gold was the helm upon his bony head face downward on the floor. He had fallen near the far wall of the cave, as now could be seen, and before him stood a stony door, closed fast. His finger bones were still clawing at the cracks. A notched and broken sword lay by him as if he had hewn at the rock in his last despair. Okay, so they see this guy dressed in gold armor, and they're like, I don't know who this is, but let's get out of here. And they move on. Okay, and so that's basically all you get. But then later, you hear this reference, and it's certainly relating back to this guy. It's Theoden talking about the paths of the dead. And he goes, none have ever ventured into it to search its secrets, since Baldor, son of Brago, passed the door, and was never seen among men again. A rash vow he spoke, as he drained the horn at that feast which Brago made to hallow new-built Medceld, and he came never to the high seat of which he was the heir. So on a dare, he basically goes and like, I'll go through the paths of the dead, and then he goes in and dies. Yeah. And we get this one last little bit. It's from the Reader's Companion. So this is a note again, where we fill in this history. And the note, it's like, oh man, anyway, it says, the special horror of the closed door before which the skeleton of Baldor was found was probably due to the fact that the door was the entrance to an evil temple hall to which Baldor had come, probably without opposition up to that point. But the door was shut in his face, and enemies that had followed him silently came up and broke his legs and left him to die in the darkness, unable to find any way out. So, like, oh my God, just the torture of this thing. These people came up, broke his legs, he's laying there in his gold armor, and just leave him in front of this door to die. Yeah. And then he's not found for hundreds of years. Yeah. Anyway, so it's Baldor the Hapless. Yeah. One of the things I love about it is this whole story unto itself. Yes. That Tolkien in the moment chooses not to tell. He's like, we got a more important story to deal with. Yeah. Just know that I couldn't tell it. But
he wanted to tell the story. He was just like, I kind of have to go on. Like, shit. Yeah. Yeah.
Right. Like it just, it's great. I think that is indicative in a lot of ways of Tolkien's mythology. What makes it so cool is like, I could go in any direction I want right now. Yeah. I'm choosing to tell this story because I think it's the most important story to tell. But if I wanted to, I could divert and tell the story of Goldberry or the story, like.
This is just what we are basically doing right now. We continue with the little scraps he's giving us. Yeah. So my pick, obviously we know Helen loves the baddies. A good baddie makes a good story,
Agreed.
Without darkness, you can't appreciate light. So my number one pick is, and because I'm the cat lady, I think Matt also saw some cats last time. I have 3 just.
I've got one who's
I know
right
your cat last time made it.
She was very involved in the video process. Yeah.
Yeah. So let's merge our houses, but we still not are on all these cats because my pick number 1 is Queen Beruthiel and her 10 cats, and this is so obscure. Like
single
story,
line.
Yes, but it's so much fun. And we know Tolkien didn't like cats. But if
It's a
you
shame.
think that Sauron started off as Tevildo, the Prince of Cats, in
Right.
one of the earliest versions, that tells you everything. Okay, so who's Queen Beruthiel and why am I picking her? Again, it's so obscure that he puts in something like cats, because this whole world, you need to imagine, sometimes he puts in stuff like playing golf or spoons, like petty arguments about spoons. He sometimes puts in very worldly things to that stand out, because this is basically a fantasy world he's creating, right? But
Good
then he
point.
puts in 10 cats. This is very random, and this is not, he could have put in fantasy creatures. She has spies, or just random people, or orcs,
Great point. Why? Yeah, the cats is interesting, right? Nine black cats and one white cat.
and
Is that
one
right?
white cat, exactly. So she had 9 cats, and it is said Tolkien wrote in a letter. Again, this is the additional information comes from a letter. So in a letter, he explained, because people were wondering what is
Yeah.
this about this cat lady. So he explained in a letter, she actually hated cats. But there are these people, and I think this is him saying, I am those
I
people.
got you.
There are these people who just,
Projecting.
I don't like cats, but they follow me and they kind of like me and they do what I want, but I don't even like them. And this is cats really do that. They kind of choose, that person. And well, anyway, so he said she didn't even like the cats, but she groomed them and she trained them to work as spies. She was actually a black Nominatorian from the area of Umbar. So, very often you had alliances and married people
Yeah, a
from other
political.
houses. I think it was a political marriage, because it is said it was a loveless marriage. They didn't have children. I mean, he probably pretty early found out she's evil, and she's spying on my people with cats. So he sat her on a ship with the 10 cats and sent her back to Umbar. Which is also like random but really interesting. And he died without offspring. This is why the line of the Gondorian kings, passed to his brother's line. So also,
So that's the last we see of her, right? Is she's on a
yes,
boat
she's
and then with the cats, and that's it. And then we never see like, oh, and she landed, and then she did something else. We don't
yeah,
know.
but the relationship with Umbar got really, really worse during that, like down the line. So I do think if she was a black Numenorean, I think she had a long lifespan. She was evil. So I do think she did some evil deeds in the East or in Umbar, still with her cats. But it's so cool, 9 cats, and then there's this overlord of cats that spies even on the spies.
Which I think there was I read somewhere the thought that perhaps the 9 is like the 9 Nazgul and then the
Yeah.
1. So perhaps there's a reference there. But
I'm wondering, yeah.
But
Yeah.
no, 10 cats that you just send out as spies.
Yeah.
Bizarre. And it's
It is very
all in a
bizarre.
reference to it's Aragorn, right? He says something like he just
does.
mentions her in passing.
They can see they can see during the night like the cats of Queen Beruthiel or something
Right.
like that.
And you're like, what is that? And of course, because it's Tolkien, there's a whole backstory
There's
to
a
it.
whole backstory. You literally,
Which is
any
awesome.
obscure mention you will find in some appendices. Like,
Right.
not kidding, people.
I forgot to do the honorable mentions. I'll do a couple of my honorable mentions. I have Malbeth, the seer.
Oh, I like that.
Who is one of the few mortals that's got the gift of prophecy, and so prophesizes Aragorn's journey through the paths of the dead.
Yeah.
Nar is the dwarf that accompanied Thror when he decided to wander into Azog's Moria. So Thror gets his head cut off. Nar's left alive, and like, take the message back that Azog runs Moria, and so it's Nar who kicks off the war of dwarves and orcs. And I'll throw in Barandir. So Barandir, Gondorian soldier who's sent to ride to what eventually become the Rohirrim, the Northmen, for aid. It's Gondor calls for aid.
Oh, that's him. Okay.
And so he's the only one that survives. Like, they send riders, they all get killed, but he's the one guy that makes it. Gets the message to Eorl the Young, I think.
Isn't this with the red spear?
Yep, the red arrow, yeah.
Red arrow, yeah.
The Northmen come back, save the day, the Battle of the Field of Celebrant, I think, and that's how they end up getting gifted Rohan, the area, the region. So Barandir saves the day in that situation as well. So there you go. Those are my honorable mentions. And we'll Lady Halleth.
Halleth, oh yes, I want to make a video on her as well one day. One day we're gonna have time, you know. Okay, so my honorable mention, obviously, I mean, Mouth of Sauron. I mean, come on, how could I thought about, but you know, I had other good ones. And meme, the petty dwarf meme. Everybody who knows me, knows my channel, knows I don't like me. I don't like memes. No, I
don't
love
like
memes.
Oh,
I
the memes. Yeah.
I love memes. No, I don't like dwarves. I'm really the only cool dwarves are the dwarves of Belaghost and Azagal. That's the only dwarf, you know. I'll let all the others. No, big fan.
Okay, we can agree to disagree there, but okay, fair enough.
I know I have a dwarf. I'm known as the dwarf hater. Also, I don't like ents. Like ents are literally so boring. That one of my favorite scene in the Lord of the Ring movies is when that one ent catched fire. You know, in Orthanc.
Dimps his head in the water, right?
Yes, that's
awesome. I love that scene.
I'm very sad that it didn't ban.
Wow.
And you know where the Ent wives are? They left because the Ents are boring as
They're just so
F.
boring.
Yes.
All right.
That's my theory.
That's a sad tale to tell, but all right. So be
I know. So I don't like dwarves. I don't like Ents. Otherwise, I'm good with Tolkien. So just so you know, no. So but meme, really cool because again, you know, it plays a lot into the Germanic and North mythology of the portrayal of dwarves actually, because this is very different from how Durin, you know, and these dwarves are portrayed because they are called petty dwarves, and it's kind of sad, you know, because they were hunted by the elves in the beginning.
Yeah.
And meme. It's kind of sad, but then again, you know, they killed King Thingol and wanted to take the Nauglamir and the Silmarils. So you know, like it's a bit shady as well. But meme plays a role in the First Age in the Turamba story, Children of Hurin. He lives in a cave. Sad, you know, they kill his two children. I mean, yes, you know, he has reasons to be mad with the elves and with Turin. And, you know, long story short, I really like the character because, again, it's not black and white. And Tolkien tells you actually, well, there are reasons for him to be the way he is, and that the dwarves were hunted originally, and this is also why, you know, the hate of the dwarves and the elves came to pass. Obviously, with them killing King Thingol and the whole Doriath incident, but still, you know, because a lot of people are always interested in why do elves and dwarves hate each other. Actually, where does this stem from?
I think isn't Meme eventually killed by Hurin?
By Hurin, yes.
Yeah,
very
shows
interesting.
up and it's like
yes,
like
because
executes him essentially.
Yes, he goes back to Nargothrond. Nargothrond is deserted because Glaurung killed everybody, and then he has the Nauglamir, and he goes to Nargothrond, and Hurin goes also there because he looks for his son. He's no longer there, and he slays him because he tells him the story of his son, so he slays him.
Yeah, it's like, oh, wow. Yeah.
Oh my God, Children of Hurin is basically a Greek tragedy.
It's so violent. Oh my goodness. Great honorable mention there as well. So I think that that covers it. I think we've done our nerddom for the day. We covered the marvelous image placed by Amazon, and we covered our 5 fun obscure characters. Anyway, thank you, Helen. I really appreciate it. And we'll do other videos in the future. Everybody go to check out the Clueless Fangirl. What's your next video that you're going to be putting up, or do you have an idea yet?
Yes, I'm working on the bloodlines of very important people like Elrond, Elros. So I try to explain where do they come from, why are they so important? Is this a bloodline Tolkien wanted to survive, to thrive?
Oh, wow.
So I'm talking about bloodlines, also Edain, so human bloodlines. Those will be my next topics, and I'm still working, but this is like literally already 30 pages long. I'm working on a comparison with Greek mythology topics. I always tweet about it. I don't know if you've seen it.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that sounds intriguing. Really. So it's 30 pages. Okay. Okay.
Yes, it's already 30 pages, so it will be like 5 videos or whatever. But yes, it's a, comparison to stories of Greek mythology and stories in Lord of the Rings that are very similar. I don't say Tolkien copies anything. We are all influenced by what
Sure.
happens and what
No, that makes
surrounds
sense.
us, right? By our history. This is how he worked. But it's so cool and so interesting. And you see things you've never. I've read all these books so many times, even also the Greek mythology ones. But if you put them side by side, it's really cool.
Yeah, that sounds like a very worthy project. So looking
Yes,
forward to that.
very
Awesome.
nice.
Thank you so much, Helen. Really, really appreciate it. And we will see everybody next time. Bye, everybody.
Bye bye.